All right, it's been a couple of weeks since I planted seeds here in the garden boxes with my mom, and I wanted to give you all a quick update. Here we have the cantaloupe that we planted. You can see that that's taking off nicely. And over here, we have the honeydew melon, and these are growing really nicely.
Nice.
By contrast, there are others that don't seem to have germinated. You know, that's gonna happen when you are planting a garden. Some of the seeds are gonna take root and others are not. It's just a lot of factors that go into that. It could be the temperature of the soil, the temperature of the environment, how much water they got or didn't get. So what I'm thinking I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna head to the store to try and purchase some plants as opposed to replanting the seeds and get a good head start on the garden. You can see my Swiss chard is coming up nicely, although some insects are attacking it already. You can see the little holes in the leaves and such. That is what I'm gonna have to continue to watch. All right, I'm headed to a couple of big box stores in a nearby city, and we're gonna see what they have. Hopefully they'll have some vegetables and some herbs, and if they do, I'll take them home and we'll go ahead and get those in the ground later this evening. All right, so I'm getting ready to make some purchases. One thing that I wanted to point out about tomato plants is that you could either buy determinate or indeterminate tomatoes. Now, determinate tomato plants will grow to a maximum of 5 feet tall, which is great for tomato cages that you can use to support the tomato plants as they're growing. Indeterminate tomato plants will grow as tall as they want, and they usually will fall over and spill over outside of the garden boxes. So I have found that for me, it is better to go with determinate tomatoes so that they stay a little more confined. And they've got a couple of good varieties here. They also have a dwarf indeterminate cherry tomato plant that I think we're gonna purchase as well. Now, a dwarf indeterminate plant shouldn't get much taller than 2 or 3 feet. So again, I can use the tomato cages and that should be perfectly sufficient. So with that said, I'm gonna pick up a couple of these tomato plants plus some additional pepper plants and maybe some other things as well. And we'll go ahead and put those in the cart and then go check out another big box store to see what else they've got as well.
Let's go shopping.
From prior experience, I've had good luck with Bush Goliath determinate tomatoes. They put out really nice fruit, and as I mentioned, I picked up a couple of these dwarf indeterminate cherry tomato plants. I also grabbed a green bell pepper as well as a jalapeno plant at this store, in addition to a little flat of broccoli, a crookneck squash, a cucumber plant, and just for fun, a pumpkin plant to see if I can grow out some pumpkins this year. And finally, I also grabbed a rosemary to replace the cumin in my garden.
This place didn't have everything that I needed, so I'm gonna check out one more big box store and we'll see what they have to supplement what I've already purchased. And then we'll go ahead and take these home and hopefully get them in the ground later this evening.
The first store didn't have a whole lot of pepper plants, so I was glad to see that this one did. And you can see here I picked up a hot banana and a Tabasco, which will be great for making vinegar-based condiment sauces. They also had a red ghost pepper plant. I've had experience too hot. And I also found some zucchini and sweet basil to complement my tomatoes and a spearmint plant.
All right, it's a little bit later in the day. I think the temperatures have cooled off sufficiently, and it's time to go ahead and get those plants that I bought today in the garden. So I'm gonna go ahead and go plant those now. I wasn't able to purchase everything that I wanted on my list, so I'm gonna take some seeds that I have stored in my garage. I keep them in there so that they stay dry from year to year. I'm gonna see if I can replant some of the things that hadn't germinated up to this point, and also plant some of the other seeds for the plants that I was not able to find at the store. So with that said, let's go ahead and get after it. The first thing I'm going to do is to put the plants in the general location of where I think I want them. That way I know what I've got and what I need to put in the other spots as far as seeds. So I'm going to do that, and then I will give you a little tour of kind of where things are going to be laid out, and then after that we'll get to planting. I'm gonna go ahead and plant pumpkin here instead of the green beans because that way all my melons are in one box. Here, I am gonna replant some of the carrot seeds that didn't take. I'm also gonna plant the chives again because the chives also didn't take here. In this box, I'm gonna replant the lemongrass seeds. I couldn't find a lemongrass plant at the store, but I was able to find a Tabasco plant, so I'll replace the serrano with that. And I'll do a jalapeno that I was able to find and a hot banana pepper instead of a poblano. Here, the okra, as I mentioned, is doing really well, so I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm gonna go ahead and plant the different tomato plants that I was able to find today, and I'm gonna put this basil that I found right in the middle because basil is a good companion plant for tomatoes. And then I'm gonna plant the bell pepper that I found today there. In this box, I'm gonna plant the squash that I bought today, the crooked neck and the zucchini squash next to each other. I'm not gonna plant the marjoram, the rosemary, or the oregano in that spot. Instead, I'm gonna put the broccoli that I bought today as well. And I'm gonna try and replant the flat Italian parsley seeds there because I didn't take the first time. Over here, I'm gonna replant the long red cayenne pepper because I like that pepper for pickling. I'm also gonna plant the onion and lettuce seeds that I didn't plant before because it was still too hot. So I'll just alternate between lettuce and onion. Over here, I'm gonna do some peas, in particular, this Oregon sugar pod pea. I'll plant those there and there. I'm gonna replant the spinach seeds because I didn't take the first time. And then I'm going to plant the mesclun for the first time today because it was too hot before as well. Finally, over here, instead of fennel, I'm gonna plant the cucumber plant. Fennel, as I mentioned before, just doesn't play nice with other plants. It is compatible with dill, but I don't really use fennel that much, so I'm gonna plant cucumbers here instead because cucumbers and dill are very good companion plants. Dill attracts good pollinators and other things that will feed on any parasites on the cucumber plant. I'm gonna plant my rosemary here instead of cumin. And finally, I was not able to find peppermint, but I was able to find spearmint today, so I'm gonna plant spearmint next to the asparagus.
You will notice that before I plant each new seedling, I take the root ball in my hands and gently tickle the soil around the roots. I do this to encourage the new seedling to continue to grow and put out new roots once it is in the ground. If you don't do this, the seedling can become root bound and not grow properly. If you watched my other video, you will notice that I also like to put tags next to each new plant or seed that I put in the ground. I do this so that I can easily identify what is actually in the boxes later on if I don't have my paperwork. And if your new seedlings don't come with their own set of tags, you can always purchase blank ones and fill them out accordingly. The last thing I decided to plant in this box was flat Italian parsley. Now I did this before, but as you can see, the seeds are really small. So this time I went ahead and put some nice dark rich soil right on top to see if I could encourage them to grow. Now that it was a little later in the season, I could plant my lettuce. You can see here that the back of the packet has a lot of growing instructions, including the depth here of 1/8 inch for the seeds, which is fairly shallow. It also has instructions for when to plant if you are in different parts of the country, but for me, this was the perfect time to do so. And again, I took a little bit of the soil that was left over from some of the seedlings to put right on top. I also planted chives in this box, which go a little bit deeper at 1/4 inch. You can see the seeds here. And finally, I planted mesclun, spinach, and peas, which, although the seed sizes are different, are all planted at 1/2 inch depth. And as I've mentioned before, it's a good idea to pluck any weeds out of your beds before you put these seeds in, because once the seeds germinate, they can be very hard to distinguish from weeds. And in the last box, as I mentioned, I replaced the fennel with a cucumber plant. I replanted the dill seeds that never took off. I planted the rosemary seedling that I bought at the store, as well as the spearmint plant.
All right, so there you have it. I got all of the plants that I bought today into the garden boxes, in addition to replanting some of the seeds that didn't take off the first time. So fingers crossed that the second time's a charm. I'm gonna go ahead and water in everything really well right now, even though I hear the thunder in the distance, just to make sure that everything gets off to a great start. And if you have any questions or comments about the things that I planted or the way that I planted them, feel free to drop a comment in the comment section below. I promise I read everything, and if you have some wisdom to impart, I'll be more than happy to relay that to my followers so we can all benefit from your words of wisdom. Don't forget to smash that like button and also consider subscribing to my YouTube channel at Rancher Mike and hitting the notification bell so you'll be informed as I release new videos. And I promise to release some progress reports on my garden to show you how things are doing. So until then, take care.
If you enjoyed this video, please give a thumbs up below. You can also check out one of my other videos here, and stay up to date by subscribing to my YouTube channel right here. Until next time, I'll see you on the ranch.